when we go on leave, we say we're a neurodivergent led company. We need to have a week downtime. If it's really urgent, here's one person who's staying on. But otherwise, we're going to be in Adelaide. Jess will be in Adelaide, and I'll be out hiking in the middle of the Simpson Desert or something like that.
Which is great, you know. Like I think when I was trying to organise this podcast itself, you actually sent a message where you were not around. You were on leave somewhere.
And that's once a year.
Example.
Go for a hike. Switch offline. You come back energized. You come back ready to go.
So you switch off all devices when you go away?
Yeah, I make sure it's out of phone range.
That's perfect. Great. There you go. So you can't even tempt yourself to use technology.
Thank you, rubbish 4G connectivity in Australia. You know?
There you go. Welcome back to the Student Founder Podcast, a platform created for student entrepreneurs, people interested in entrepreneurship, and experts in business to come on and talk about their experiences in the startup world. I'm your host, Oliver Kukanik, PhD student by day, student founder by night. And this episode is brought to you by RofiLabs, a software development platform that I, amongst a group of friends, have started. It's a startup that focuses on developing apps and also offering a service of dedicated resources to expand companies that are looking for developers. If this is something that you'd be interested in learning more about, make sure to visit our website at rofilabs.com.au. Let's get straight into the podcast. So today we have the founder of Next Level Collaboration, a neurodiverse-led organization that is focused on using research-informed gamified systems to help children who are neurodiverse develop collaborative skills, confidence, and friendships. This project is supported and endorsed and sponsored by the University of Melbourne through the Translating Research at Melbourne program and is gaining traction exponentially. Introducing to you, Dr. Matthew Harrison.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. You know, we've had some, I guess, troubles trying to organise. You're a very busy man, so we appreciate it.
I enjoy a busy life, but yes, thanks for having me. I think it's just such a great thing.
Absolutely,
to have this podcast. It's such a great way to celebrate all the wonderful things students are doing in the startup scene.
Exactly, and also just to put, I guess the Australian student entrepreneur in the spotlight they deserve. There's so much technical talent coming out of Australia. I don't think they're vocalised enough.
I was surprised by it, even just within the University of Melbourne ecosystem, just some of the creativity and some of the really significant global problems that local students are actually addressing.
Absolutely.
And leading the way globally. So it's just such an exciting time.
Definitely. All right, so I guess before we get into, the nitty and gritty of your experience, your journey, your business, maybe for the viewers, we can just talk a little bit about what actually is like neurodiversity. Right? So I don't think people necessarily have a good concept of what it is. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
It's just, I think this is such an important shift through society in recent years that we're starting to reconceptualise, and we're talking about conditions like autism and ADHD as being natural variations in people's brains. And the idea is that there is this neurodiversity. People's brains work differently. And so it's moving away from this medicalised model of deficits or psychological model of deficits and really thinking about, okay, if people think and act in different ways and there's different cultural norms, and thinking of autism as a culture or ADHD as having a cultural element as well, how can we create a world in which all different neurotypes can be celebrated but can also be included in society? So how can we really reframe the way we look at things like autism, ADHD, looking at things like Tourette's syndrome?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So how's that journey been for you so far? Just open broadly.
Oh, I've learned so much.
Yeah. Always things to learn. Huh?
Always things to learn. And one of the I think the greatest things about working closely with the autistic community is working with my co-founder Jess.
Of course, yeah. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us today, but I'm sure that she's a wonderful woman. She's definitely done a lot of work for the company and everything. So Must be good having a good co-founder.
Oh, having Jess as a co-founder and I guess in some ways a mentor into the neurodiversity movement.
Definitely. Yeah.
For the listeners who aren't aware of Jess, she's become a bit of an autism icon right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
The Department of Education had her on centre stage this morning for EduTech, the big education technology conference.
Definitely.
Jess is an autistic woman. She's also a speech and language pathologist professionally.
Yeah.
And she really has helped in terms of Next Level, what we do at Next Level Collaboration, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon.
Definitely.
Really reframe the idea of what it means to run social capacity building programs.
Definitely.
Why are we doing what we do? And what is the social objective we want through starting a social enterprise?
Sure.
So I've learned, just working with Jess and the rest of the autistic community.
Yeah.
As a teacher, it's changed what I'm trying to do and why I'm trying to do it. It's going from fixing deficits to trying to create and remove barriers so that people with differences feel like they're part of society.
Definitely, that's fascinating. So how did you actually go about meeting Jess? Because you yourself have an academic background, you have a PhD.
Yeah.
And then obviously you decided at some point to go down the avenue of running your own startup, which we can get into, of course. But in terms of meeting Jess and actually thinking, okay, this is the right business partner. How did you go about that?
Yeah, it was one of those stories, and I think it's quite common in that it wasn't planned. I had finished my PhD, and I wanted to get it out there. And I wanted to not sit, in a tomb, sort of on the shelf gathering dust, or maybe even get a few publications or a book out of it. But I wanted to actually see it actually being used to bring change.
Utility,
that's right. Yeah, get it implementation, get it out there, change the game.
Absolutely.
Excuse the pun. But there was something. I went to one of the the translating research at Melbourne boot camps.
Sure.
And something that the facilitator, Andrew Rouse, who I'm not sure if you're going to have on your podcast at all, but he is a fantastic brain in the startup scene. He said, startups, it's best when you have a co-founder because you can ride the highs and lows together.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I went away thinking about that. And around the same time, this is early 2020, just before we went into lockdown, one of my colleagues, who is a well-known academic in intervention, learning intervention,
sure,
had a researcher working with his team, who was Jess. Yeah. And he said to me, "Oh, you love Jess. She's a gamer like you are, and she's got a great way of seeing, data, and she really has really interesting ideas around social capacity building programs." And then Jess tells me that what she heard from John was Matt has a Super Nintendo in his office. You should go check that out.
Yeah.
So
it all started there.
It started there. So
nice.
we had a few Zooms, and I found this is the missing part of the puzzle. And that's what Andrew Rouse was talking about at Tram. The idea that you bring certain skills and certain knowledge, in my case, the research side, but Jess had that lived and professional experience as a speechy and as an autistic woman, and we just got on. We just clicked.
Fascinating. That was great. It's fantastic that you're able to meet someone and connect so fast as well. So
it is. It's just maybe it's common, maybe it's not. I don't know. But the fact that we have, you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person.
Yeah, of course.
You want to make sure that you have a similar sense of humour. You got to want to actually spend time with someone. In a professional sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And for Jess, it was just such an easy win.
Yeah,
working with her. So
that's great. So you said you studied your PhD, right?
Yes, I did.
What did you actually study your PhD in? Like what field exactly?
Well, my background is I'm a teacher.
Okay.
So I think like a lot of really good education PhDs, which is the area in which I received my PhD, it really came from me observing something in my classroom and wanting to find out why.
Sure.
Why is it, in this case, I was working with a group of neurodivergent kids in a mainstream school. Some had formal labels, some didn't. But we had a Friday lunchtime gaming club. And it started off as sort of a reward. If there weren't any issues in the yard, Monday to Thursday, we'd play games together. And I look back at that now and I see that as, maybe a little bit problematic, that approach. But it was used initially as a thing saying, hey, if you can stay in the yard, not be removed from the yard, Monday to Thursday, on Friday lunchtime, I'll play some co-op games with you.
Yeah.
It was also a great chance for me to get to connect with my students. But I started to notice when I was playing with them that they could do things in terms of demonstrating, performing collaborative skills, things like negotiation, things like turn taking when playing the games that they weren't doing in PE class, for example, or weren't doing in their library class.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I really want to find out why this is happening, how we can use the affordances of digital games-based intervention to teach these skills in a meaningful way, but also how we can design something that could be rolled out around the country and hopefully internationally.
Definitely, yeah. So I guess that's a very interesting idea, because basically what you're saying is that your research, directly helped you come up with the idea, and actually, it gave you the skills necessary to push forward with the idea as well.
What's interesting is I thought surely someone must have done this before.
Yeah.
So when I was doing my master's, I started to do research and to find out what people done in this space before. But there wasn't anything that was specifically routine and I say routine based or systems based that would support my particular students in a way that was likely, I believe, to be successful.
Yeah.
So I realised there's a real, using business speak, a gap in the market in terms of programs.
Yeah.
And then I also realised a lot of the programs are also very deficit-based. And I guess the more and more that I became familiar with the neurodiversity movement, the more I said, hey, hang on, there's something we need to reconsider here.
Yeah.
So, we really are in a unique place at the moment. Luckily, there are other neurodiverse positive programs coming out now.
Definitely.
But when I first started this, there was very little in the way of digital games-based intervention.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the actual company.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
It's a fascinating company. There's not a lot of them like it, like you've said. So what exactly is your company?
We are a neurodivergent-led or neurodiverse-led company in the sense that we try, as a social enterprise, we try to hire as many neurodivergent people as possible to run our programs.
Which is great.
So we run in-person social capacity building programs that use co-op gaming.
Yeah, nice.
Using lots of different commercial games, using the system of instruction that we originally developed through my PhD, but have since refined.
Yeah.
And we run in-person programs, and we're looking to run online programs for typically kids aged between 5 and 16. But what's happened recently is we've had a lot of adults reach out and say, hey, I'm autistic. I want to develop collaborative problem-solving skills in a neurodiverse positive way.
Yeah.
Do you have anything for young adults? And I'm like, yes, we will. That's the answer.
We will. One day.
But our social mission is there's obviously addressing the historic. We want to run programs that kids and young adults want to attend.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that it's neurodiverse positive, so they really are learning these universally applicable skills and not changing who they are.
Yeah.
And we want to employ people with lived experiences to run the programs.
Yeah.
So that's our real social mission. And these are 3 key problems we've seen. And it's getting better in terms of all 3, but we still feel like we're at the cutting edge.
Yeah.
We hope we're changing the game, so to speak.
Yeah, it sounds like you are, and I love the idea and the way that you've approached the idea. Like bringing on people who are actually, who have neurodiversity and seeing exactly what they want and what they engage with is so critically important for an idea like this. So. Yeah,
I mean, it's the joke that it's well worn now within our organisation, but they refer to me as the diversity hire. As the white neurotypical male between the ages of 18 and 40. They say they're going to put me in all the brochures and the pamphlets. And it's because, historically, neurodivergent, particularly neurodivergent women, have been so underrepresented.
Absolutely.
And one of the things we're proudest about as a social enterprise, coming from the University of Melbourne, was we had the first openly neurodivergent female CEO, Jess.
Yeah.
So
she's fantastic.
Yeah, she's just, fire emoji. It's just...
like straight up, even the hair and everything, she's got it going.
And it really is changing perceptions of what a CEO is in terms of, who you... When our younger autistic or neurodivergent kids think about what they want to be, particularly our neurodivergent women, they see Jess and they say, you know what, I can be that now.
Yeah.
She's
a perfect role model.
Yeah. I don't think she sets out to be a role model, but it's just seeing how accomplished she is. A lot of parents they stop looking at what their kids can't do in terms of these traditional considerations of deficits.
Definitely.
And they think, you know what, my child can be a CEO at a University of Melbourne social enterprise.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. So talking about your idea then, next level collaboration, how did you actually validate the idea? Like, validating is such a critical, important part at the beginning stage of development of whatever it is that you're going to start. So what are some of the things that you did to validate it, and how did that journey really, like, I guess, transpire?
Yeah, it's such an interesting point, because I don't think I recognised the importance before I started Tram in connecting with your, I guess, target audience, your target market, and really seeing, is what you're offering what they want. I've heard this referred to as the ugly baby test.
Sure.
It's like, you know, if you have a particularly, if you have a particularly ugly baby, and you ask people you're friends with, what do you think? They're always going to say it's great. So, it's a good looking baby. But if you're asking people who have no vested interest in your relationship what you think. So the Tram advice was fantastic on this one, was saying interview as many potential customers as possible. So we interviewed about 60, I think, potential customers.
Which is, I mean, it's hard. Like, in-person interviews, was it?
This was during, I'm a Melburnian, so if you're listening from outside of Melbourne, we had 7 lockdown periods. So when we were really working out the fundamentals of our company, we did a lot of this via Zoom.
Yeah, which is, I guess, some of the perks of the tech that exists these days.
Yeah, and it was good in a way because all of our parents are autistic themselves.
Sure.
So it was just a more, for them, as a friendlier mode of communication, preferred mode. So we interviewed about 60, and what we found was it really saved us a lot of time and a lot of money in branding.
Yeah.
The first thing was we were advertising ourselves as next level social skills.
Okay.
We thought that was a good move
because
social skills were seen as a key category for accessing NDIS funding under the NDIA pricing guide. So we thought, in terms of how the business model, how parents would actually pay to attend a next level collaboration program. So next level social skills, it sounded good to an NDIS plan manager. It sounded like conversion therapy to a lot of the autism advocates and a lot of our parents who belong to those organisations. And so
even the name was just
the name. So we had our hoodies printed, we had our advertising, and we had some parents going, you know, I love what you guys do.
Yeah.
And these were some early paying customers, and some potential customers. We love what you do. I go to, you know, parent groups and I tell them about you, and they're sold until they hear the name, and they're like, no, I could never send my child to that program because when they grow up, they're going to hate me. They're going to think I sent them to
convert or something.
Neurotypical conversion camp.
Oh, that's so interesting. Because you know, there's so much debate on selecting the correct name of a company. Yeah. You know, and often people say, you know, like, you look at traditional companies like Nike, for example, right? Yeah. And it's like, what is Nike? You know what I mean? Like, what actually is it? People don't know. Well, they know what it is now because it's a brand, right? But in this case, there's so much utility in the actual name and what you called it. And it was actually pushing people away. So this is a good user case.
Oh, so it's such an important case. So we spent probably about $2,000 on things like the hoodies, branding. And now I shamefully sleep in my next level social skills hoodie because we don't use it anymore. Yeah. We heard the market, but it only cost us, $1,000 or $2,000.
Which is fine. Yeah.
Before we print all our big, all your big promotional banners and your website and everything, it was great to have that early customer insight. Absolutely. Find out this is a barrier to our target audience and it's turning them off potentially considering us. Yeah. So what you want to do is remove those barriers. So we had next level collaboration. What we really focus on is those collaborative skills that every kid needs. Absolutely. And that's what we open with when we talk to parents.
Yeah, there you go.
We're not trying to change your kid. We're trying to help them to develop self-advocacy, build friendships, and develop the collaboration skills they're going to need. Every kid needs to be safe, happy, and learning throughout their lives.
Sure. So I guess we'll move on to another section I like to call, I guess it doesn't really have a name yet, but challenges that you'd face, right? Yeah. So I've already kind of brushed over some of the challenges, but something that I thought of myself, like in terms of my experiences with my parents and how I was brought up, was, you know, oh, you don't want to game, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
This mentality, right? And it's a bit of a stigmatized area, gaming, especially for adults looking at their children waste time playing games.
Yeah.
So my question is to you, how did you go about, or how do you go about educating parents of the utility and the benefits of gaming itself?
Yeah, and there's like, this is an umbrella term, and I think just as as a bit of background here.
Sure.
We weren't allowed. We had computer games because my parents saw computers as being something, you know, that had a productive element as well.
Oh yeah.
Your word processor. And I'm 38, just to give some context for the audience. So we had a 286 computer, and we had the shareware games and like Commander Keen and some classics and
the old school.
Yeah, the classics, and we had people come around to our house and would play together. And I think that's where I learned a lot of my social skills. But we were allowed to have Nintendo, for example, and I'm a massive Nintendo fan now. I think maybe it was the Prohibition when we were younger.
Right.
Until we had 10 weeks travelling in the States when I was 12, my brother was 10.
Yeah.
And my parents got so sick of us fighting in the back seat for these long periods of driving that they eventually bought us Game Boys.
There you go.
So I, like yourself,
Yeah.
I heard a lot of like, oh, you don't need Nintendo, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And we do hear concerns around violence in games.
Yeah, of course.
And sexism, which, you know, in some cases are legitimate concerns. And we hear concerns around screen time and social isolation.
Yeah.
Just addressing each of those three for your audience. And they are challenges.
Definitely.
The first one really being around the idea of talking around how we address conversations of violence and sexism. It's a really easy conversation. We use carefully selected age-appropriate games.
Oh, yeah.
Our games are adhere to a set of 39 design principles that we identified through the PhD research as creating the conditions for collaboration.
Sure.
So it's not about just getting any game. It's about carefully selecting the games.
That suits the particular skill that you're trying to...
Yeah, it suits the skill, but also creates interdependence where the players all have to work and communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And that's the real key. Our programs, the instructors or facilitators teach the skills and they provide the feedback and they support the players at the point of need.
Yep.
The games create the conditions.
Sure.
And we use commercially developed games because they're the games that kids are interested in.
Yeah.
But we're using things like Untitled Goose Game. I don't know if you've played this.
Yeah, I've played it.
Great game. If you listeners, if you haven't had a look, check it out. But the two-player. And it actually changes the title to Untitled Geese Game. You're playing two-player. It's quite clever.
It's a fascinating game because it's so basic, but it just makes sense. Like, and you have to work really as a team. So
you do. And if you haven't heard of this game, if you're listening to this podcast, you have to. The idea is you're creating chaos as a pair of geese, and you got a series of tasks like stealing the farmer's keys or spraying the farmer with a hose. And you have to work together. One person has to create a distraction while one person steals the keys, for example. You have to coordinate your actions, your timing.
Absolutely.
You have to talk about who's going to fulfill which role. There's some really rich expressive and receptive language skills required and pragmatics required there.
Definitely.
But in a fun and meaningful way. So we're not, and I mean, I love a great team-based shooter called Back for Blood.
Of course, yeah.
I enjoy that. I am a 38-year-old person, and that is appropriate for me to play that. It may not be everyone's cup of tea.
Sure.
I play it with my friends, and we're probably still using the same skills. But it's a game that, you know, of course, you wouldn't show an R-rated film to a 9-year-old. So you're not going to show them an R-rated game. It's just common sense.
Of course. But maybe having said that, like in terms of those previous customers who were talking about maybe wanting to build their skills, who are neurodiverse themselves, being able to play games in their age category that's appropriate, they might be able to then use and develop those skills appropriately.
Absolutely. And we use, it's about like trying to find something that's meaningful to your audience. And I think that's why we've been so well received. The second thing, screen time.
Of course.
The research around this is really strong. There's this place in the University of Connecticut's they have Game and Media Effects Lab, and they've got some really good research. There's a lot of other research. It's about quality of screen time rather than the amount. Playing 18 hours of, you know, Call of Duty or whatever is in a day, that's obviously excessive.
Of course.
Gaming addiction is a real thing for a very, very small percentage of kids. Just to put it in context, the number of children that have basically, have what's termed clinical gaming addiction is actually lower. And this is frame of reference for me, as someone who wears contact lenses. I am more likely to do serious eye damage by wearing contacts, percentage-wise, of the population than for a child to get gaming addiction.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you wear contact lenses, and it's still a very small risk.
Yeah, sure.
But this shows you how small the population that have a clinical diagnosis of gaming addiction is. There are kids who play too much, and we talk about balance. So we run in-person programs at the moment, and the idea is this is gaming for good. This is gaming with a purpose. Social gaming. You're not playing by
waste
yourself.
time or kill time or
that's right. So we have that conversation around quality of experience when you're accessing screen time. It's an inherently social thing. It's about belonging, building friendships, and doing something meaningful together. The third consideration that we get in terms of challenges around gaming,
of course,
is often around. I think this one is often a bit hard to define, but it's how we talk about, I guess in an educational sense, how you measure what kids are doing.
Sure, like quantifying the benefits and things like
that. Yeah, it's the measurement angle. So they say, well, teachers are like, I really like the idea of kids connecting for fun, which I think is a legitimate purpose.
Of course.
But saying about how do I actually assess this and measure this as a teacher, for example. And so there are definitely instruments that we've been developing from the research side to show how students or children and young adults are actually developing these social competencies, these collaborative skills.
So maybe like if it's possible to explain, like what's one metric you can actually quantify in this process?
So you're looking at the sophistication, and we use something called the collaborative problem-solving empirical progressions developed here at the University of Melbourne by the Assessment Research Centre, and it looks at social regulation, it looks at perspective taking, and it looks at the sophistication of the way in which we participate within a group. So across those three broad categories, social regulation, participation, and perspective taking, there's really a hierarchy, I guess, of sophistication in terms of how we use different sets of skills together, like turn taking, using your voice to give instructions.
Sure.
So when we talk about something really concrete, it's the idea of me observing what you're doing, seeing that you are doing something that I don't think is helping the team. How do I give you feedback? So we can actually measure the way in which you give feedback and how well you adjust that based on the response of the other person.
Wow.
So we're looking at sophistication of the use of these skills. So we look at 15 target skills, and then we measure the level of sophistication they're using each of those skills. So we look at turn taking, encouraging. This is really we call it kid-friendly language. Everyone, we have really clear examples of what this looks like in a game, and non-examples as well. Things like requesting feedback, offering feedback, how you offer feedback. I know a lot of adults. I don't know if you know adults who could definitely work on how they provide feedback to their peers.
Absolutely.
In a way that's likely.
There's almost no set way that we've been taught to do that. So it's definitely a key skill in society. Yeah,
and thinking about this from the neurological difference perspective, there's different ways you can do it. What really matters is it's a two-way street. How I feel offering that feedback. But thinking about how you're going to respond and how you actually receive it and how you respond to feedback.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a two-way reciprocity in that.
It is. That social reciprocity is really important. Yeah. It's a multiplayer experience.
Yeah, there you go. So multiplayer experience. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. So you've told us a little bit about the project now, how you've gone about establishing. I have a question for you, which is how do you promote a platform or service like this in terms of your marketing strategy?
To be honest, we haven't had to, and that's because we've got such a wonderful parent community. Well, maybe that's not true. We have a little bit because We got lucky, to be honest, in the sense that Jess works with a group called Yellow Ladybugs, which is a charity for autistic girls and women. Yep. People identify as non-binary, including that too. So we were the first group that they actively promoted. So we, for our pilot programs, had a natural audience, and that they trusted us. We know from our market research that the number one thing by far that the autistic community rely on is word of mouth.
Yeah.
Whether that be word of mouth in the car park after a Yellow Ladybugs event, or after word of mouth via social media.
Yeah. It's a powerful tool.
Oh, huge.
Absolutely.
And so we've got a wait list based on that. Now, we did get a media consultant on board, and that's really because for us, you've got a teacher and a speechier, and a lot of these startups will have different backgrounds. We recognised that media was not in our skill set. So we did media training.
Sure.
And part of that was they also, our media, we worked specifically with a media organisation that focuses on helping social enterprises.
Yeah.
So you need to have a social mission called the Shape Agency, if you want to Google it at home, if you're here. And they've been wonderful, but teaching us, sort of how you do TV interviews, radio interviews. So when we started getting attention for what we're doing, because of that word of mouth, and we're on the ABC 7:00 news, having some media training about how you deal with tricky questions was really key for us.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, you've done well, and I'm sure everyone on your team has done well in that process. So
and I think it's just making sure that we have that marketing is that we can really easily explain who we are, what we do, and why. I think that's key for any startup.
Definitely, and I feel like bringing on people who are directly affected and can utilize the tools that you're creating just brings a little bit more passion to the conversations on media, right? Because these people really have a rudimentary understanding of why they're doing it and the utility it's directly having on the participants. So
huge. We'll go back to your previous question about how we measure collaboration. I did like 10 hours of video analysis. When we did the customer interviews, I'd start telling parents this. They didn't care. They really did not care. Because I'm a massive research nerd, so I said we use video analysis, behavior analysis.
Went into the nitty and gritty.
Went into the lab, and we could see frequency of turn taking, and we're counting the duration, and we're measuring the sophistication. Did not give a hoot. What they really cared about for their kids was that they felt like they belonged. I said before that they were safe, and that they were, something that they really wanted to go to. We call it the car park test. Does the parent have to hold them back from running into the centre or running into our programs, or are they dragging the kid out of the car? After a long day at school, and we think we passed the car park test. Kids want to come to us.
But that's good.
And that's what parents wanted.
Definitely.
They didn't want to fight, at 4:00 on a Tuesday afternoon, trying to get their kid to go to a social capacity building program they fundamentally didn't want to go to.
There you go.
So in terms of the marketing angle, that's how we market.
Which is great. The power of word of mouth. Absolutely. Word of mouth
and really responding to those messages from those customer interviews, saying, right, this is what they want to hear about. And I'll save the collaborative problem solving empirical progressions for the journal articles.
Of course.
Academic conferences.
Definitely. All right, so I guess something that I'm curious about, because the first time I met you was you were presenting at a Melbourne Accelerator program, I guess exhibition or conference as you'd call it, and they introduced you as being a very busy man, right? So I guess you're quite notorious around the precinct of University of Melbourne as being someone who's running around, because you're still a teacher at this point. You're still doing teaching and things like that. I teach,
within the graduate school. So I lecture.
So you do lecturing.
I coordinate autism intervention. I'm very lucky that my school is extremely supportive, and my boss, Professor Lorraine Graham, is wonderfully supportive, and our dean Jim Watterson has been brilliant as well. The whole School of Education has been so supportive. But I've got my responsibilities. I lecture, I teach.
So my question then becomes, for any student entrepreneur or founder of a company, balancing time is such a critical and important skill to have.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you manage to, lecture, like have a family, like, like go around, like, and organize yourself around your business.
I know you have a startup too, if we talked at the start,
yeah,
so we can both have this conversation
Of
probably.
course.
My partner is, we don't have kids yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, at this stage of my career, I think trying to find the time, it would be hard.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
my partner's the same. We are both busy. And it's live or dying by our calendars, like the old sort of Outlook booking on our calendar.
Yeah.
So I block out time for things.
Sure, yeah, which is good.
It is
Absolutely,
good, and making sure that I do have time with Sarah, my partner, and same for her. She's very busy as well, and so we make sure we do find that balance. I play hockey Thursday nights.
Another obligation that you
block that out, and that's something I'm saying.
Yeah.
I could easily have given that up.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, it's actually, I see
It's
friends
really good for you,
from high school. I've got friends who drive down from Ballarat from
wow.
high school
Yeah.
to play. And it's social. It's that, I guess, and you would know this, when you're thinking about something 24/7.
It's not healthy.
No.
It's not good for you. It actually impedes on your progress and your productivity. Right?
Yeah.
So having the wind down, whether it's a sport or music or some hobby or gaming, even, right? It just has so much utility to clear the mind.
It is.
Yeah.
And my other roles, I'm the director, I was co-director with Catherine Smith, who's a colleague at the School of Education of Student Experience at the School of Education.
Wow.
That does require at times to be quite reactive, responsive.
Definitely.
When students, certain situations come about and how we can help students to have the best possible experience. So it's really just trying to make sure you give everything the attention it needs.
Yeah.
I do try not to overcommit myself.
Yeah.
I do spend a lot of weekends here trying to catch up on things.
That's all right though, but I mean, you're still, like, how long has Next Level Collaboration been around for?
2 years.
2 years,
Yeah.
so still quite rudimentary phase.
It is. We're in the early stage, and Jess is works on this, full time.
Yeah.
And she's such a wonderful person to work with. She's just such she's a hard worker. She's a leader.
Of course.
She just gets things done.
Yeah, which is very good.
Again, with if you've got good co-founders, you can rely on. That's at the School of Education. I can rely on everyone to do things they say they're going to do. And Next Level, our whole team, I know I can rely on them. And it's just that reliability allows me, and I have to in turn make sure I'm reliable to them too, and accountable.
Definitely, yeah.
But I think that allows it to make it possible. And I think so many busy people at the University of Melbourne, it works on, and startups, particularly the startup scene, it works on being accountable to your co-founders.
Yeah.
And works on that sense of making sure you give everything the attention it requires to be successful.
So what platform do you use to, I guess, organise yourself with your business partner and staff?
Yeah, we started off with Monday.com.
Yeah, great.
And that's
Great
what...
app.
Yeah,
It's
and
the
that's
same thing,
I do, and that we were using that, and we still use that a bit for projects.
Yeah.
So for sprints,
Yep.
we have like certain things we want to do, like legal, our infrastructure, getting that set up. There's so many different things, trademarks, IP, all that stuff. So working out that, we moved towards using just our Outlook calendars and blocking the time.
Which is good, because the benefit is, of course, one of your colleagues, for example, if they've got a time blocked on their Outlook calendar, you can't book a scheduled meeting with them, because
That's
they'll tell
right.
you that you've double booked.
It used to be that Jess could just see whether it was available or not. I've given her full access, like read-write access to my calendar, and she's done the same. We block in, for her partner, we block in social times when we're away.
Well. That's good.
And so she knows whether if I'm in a meeting that's a marketing moderation meeting, I am chairing. I'm not going to leave that. For to deal with a
client
next
or
level
some
issue.
type of business related.
But if I've just blocked out some time to write a grant, she knows. I'm actually I'm blocked out that time for grant, so she can call me or text me, and that's fine.
So some things are set in stone, other things you've kind of blocked time out so you can get to it, but it's also a little bit flexible. Yeah,
we had that discussion early on around sort of expectations about when would be okay for me to be able to contact you and when not. I think having that really clear boundaries as well.
Definitely. Like having clear expectations is such an important thing when you're working with people.
It is, thinking about, like, on weekends, trying to have that downtime, trying not to. So I'll delay setting my my own messages or emails until Monday 8 a.m.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'll write them all on the weekend.
So you almost block your time and then send them all out at once.
Yeah, at once, because I don't want people to feel like they have to respond straight away.
Yeah.
And when we're working with people with neurological differences and autistic burnout's a very real thing.
Definitely.
It's really thinking about what are we as a company and what's our culture around this. We've got an out of office message permanently on our press-start at nextlevelcollaboration.com, our main email address, inbox, that says, we're a neurodivergent friendly company. We'll get back to you within 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, which is good, yeah.
That's great. When we go on leave, we say, we're a neurodivergent led company. We need to have a week downtime.
Yeah.
If it's really urgent, here's one person who's staying on. But otherwise, we're going to be in Adelaide, Jess will be in Adelaide, and I'll be out hiking in the middle of the Simpson Desert or something like that.
Which is great, you know. Like I think when I was trying to organise this podcast itself, you actually sent a message where you were not around, you were on leave somewhere.
Yeah, and that's once a year.
Example.
Go for a hike.
Yeah.
Switch offline.
How
you
good.
come back energized. You come back ready to go.
So you switch off all devices when you go away?
Yeah, I make sure it's out of phone range.
That's perfect. Great. There you go. So you can't even tempt yourself to use technology.
Thank you, rubbish 4G connectivity in Australia. You know,
there you go.
There's a lot more places than South Korea where I live. You couldn't get away. You could be anywhere in South Korea.
You could be in the middle of a forest.
And they can find you. That's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to another section, which is more related to, I guess, funding and developing the actual project itself, right? So because you're working with, you know, I guess a company more of like an educational service or platform, how did you actually attain funding for a project like this?
Yeah. So I actually was part of another startup about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was a co-founder, but I had a smaller role around the design. As we're designing university software for peer assessment and feedback. And it was a great learning curve.
Yeah.
But the problem we hit was because we're selling to universities, the sales cycles are so long.
Yeah.
So you get initial seed funding through our startup incubator. We went through Deacon Spark at the time. You get your initial funding, you build an MVP, and then you test it at a few different institutions. It takes so long to convince people to put sustainable money on the table to further develop the product and to actually pay you a wage or a salary.
Yeah.
We found it was just there was too much time it was going to take to get it out there and get it done, and so you know it wasn't successful. Ultimately, we stopped. Yeah. But it was successful in the sense that I learned so much about what I guess some of the barriers you can face.
Definitely. And I think that just before you go on, that's such a important lesson for everybody watching as well. Is like you might pursue a project that might lead or appear to lead to nowhere, but actually in the process of trying to acquire success, you've learned so many valuable skills that you can translate moving forward.
I would love to see a panel of people who have successful startups talking about their failures, talking about their, not talking about their multi-million-dollar, medical company, but like something that they started and was just, it just
went belly up.
Yeah, it went belly up in a fantastic way, and the lessons learned through that. I think that's so valuable for people. But the lesson from day one, we had revenue coming in the door for the next level. We wanted to run in-person programs where the NDIS was such an important economic reform for disability and neurodivergent communities because it changes them from consumers of welfare into active people, I guess, customers, for lack of a better term, or participants who have economic agency in theory. It's not a perfect system in deciding what they need and who is best to be able to provide that. Yeah. NDS has a lot of issues at the moment and I hear a lot of human rights abuses occurring from a lot of participants. Yeah. But it has been great for us in that our passionate parents who want something neurodiverse positive have a natural way of funding or of paying for our program without them having to pay for it from their. It is their own money, from their own income. Yeah. So I think that's a really key point, is having that revenue coming in has shown that we've had, I think it's like 17 months of consecutive revenue coming in.
Wow.
And making sure we're sustainable, economically sustainable.
Yeah.
Except for, Jess's salary.
Yeah.
From day one.
Well, salary is always the biggest expense.
It is, but we've been able to pay our program facilitators a good. That's our mission, was to pay them a good wage to cover our insurance.
Yeah.
So Jess and I actually went out and did this by ourselves. We went and got public liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance, hired people as contractors, and said, we're going to pay you. We want to pay you a good hourly rate, not the minimum wage, to be our program facilitators. And then we were very lucky, and the university provided some seed funding to us.
Yeah, which is great.
Which would cover Jess. We cover our lawyers.
Yeah. Is that through TRAM?
Originally from the MGSE.
Okay, yeah.
Then we received some MAP funding.
Yeah.
We're applying. It's very exciting. There's the Genesis Fund. We're in the middle of applying for that.
Sure. Which
will give us a 2 or 3 year rocket base. 2 or 3 year. We call it it's our rocket period.
Yeah.
Where we want to scale from our pilot location and pilot programs to be able to get to a certain number of programs and a certain number of locations, which will allow us to cover Jess's salary, an operations manager.
Sure.
Working with a lot of really, really clever people here at the University of Melbourne to help us to build that business case, that plan, and then over the next 2 years to use that Genesis funding, hopefully, to be able to get from where we are now to where we need to be financially independent.
Definitely. Yeah. There you go. So it's interesting because you almost, straight out of the gate, because you were generating revenue, you validated your idea, you saw that it was a sustainable business model.
Yeah.
Then you obviously had some, help getting funding and things like that, and then used that funding to kind of build a plan and accelerate your business idea into something more sustainable.
Early revenue is just such a blessing in so many ways, because you can do things like we've got an awesome creative graphic designer, and we've got a really strong brand identity because we can afford to pay someone who's a VCA grad, and we've got a videographer who's brilliant at doing our promo videos, and you can hire a media consultant,
definitely,
and you can hire the lawyers you want to hire, the ones who we've got a really good law firm who specialise in social enterprise, and just are really aware of the needs of our staff. So you can make sure the constitution for your company is not just a template; it's actually something that's tailored to you as a business, as a social enterprise.
And people involved, the assets almost, because you're developing, what you're using their skills to fullest potential.
That's right.
So I guess for the audience watching, it's like if you haven't looked at the website yet for his company, it's actually quite visually aesthetic, right?
It is.
So it's good that you've got a good graphics designer involved and things like that, developing the website. So
we've got a couple of really talented graphic designers involved. Our web devs are actually parents, neurodiverse parents from our program. So we try to hire as many neurodivergent people as possible, and so having our web developers being a family from our pilot, and they're almost like brand ambassadors, in the sense that they're so passionate about us. But as part of what we do is we want to make sure we are, trying to make sure that the money we do bring in is going back into as many different neurodivergent-led organisations as possible.
Yeah, definitely. So I read, I don't know if it was in an article or maybe just on your website, but you were one of the first social enterprises to be spun off and supported by UniMelb. Is that right?
I believe we're the first.
The first,
so if you're listening to this podcast and you were the first, please reach out, because RIC, Research, Investment, Innovation and Commercialisation, did go through their books trying to find that out, because when we had our launch in May and the Vice-Chancellor came, of course, asked the questions, how do you know? How do you know you're the first? And that's a really good question. And so we went, the RIC team had gone through their records and said, with nothing on file. So, it's pretty surreal.
Absolutely.
And we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah, definitely. And it would be good for the company as well, especially being a group of neurodiverse individuals, it's such an awesome story.
It is. And
it's such a nice story.
And we talk about diversity and inclusion, and historically the University of Melbourne has not been wonderful in this space, but I think we're getting there, and I'm proud to be from the University of Melbourne, and I'm proud to be particularly from the Melbourne Graduate School of Education. to be able to see the support we've received.
Yeah.
Hopefully a bit like for the kids, to be able to see like Jess, senior leadership role.
Yeah.
Really being the leader of our not really, in reality, being the leader of our organisation. And it's a bit like, hopefully next level can be for other academics who are thinking about how can I get my research out there?
Yeah.
How can I have social impact? They'll say, social enterprise is a legitimate pathway. Or PhD students.
Yeah.
Think, what am I going to do now after I finish my PhD?
It's such a massive question we're all faced
where
with,
next?
Well, what's next?
So,
it's like graduate students, who are doing research, their PhD, whatever it is. They it's this massive journey where you're like, I have to submit my thesis, and you're putting all this effort and hours, and it's laborious, and you get to the end, and you're like, what now?
Yeah. And go see Andrew Rouse at Tram.
Yeah.
Or go see Sarah Robinson, who works as the Melbourne Entrepreneurial Centre marketing comms person. Go talk to these wonderful individuals, and they will help you figure out whether or not what you've got is something that you could spin into a social enterprise. It's a great journey.
There you go. Wow, so inspiring. So I guess I have another question just before we wrap it up, but what are the big plans? What's the big plans for Next Level Collaboration? Bit of a broad question.
Oh, no.
It's
a question I ask myself. Where is this going to end? Who knows?
Yeah.
But we're looking to. We're going to open up across 4 additional locations by the end of next year.
Wow.
So there'll be 8 programs, 8 programs in total, running throughout the week. We'll have an online program we're piloting by the end of next year.
Yeah.
And then we're hoping to go interstate.
Yeah.
We're hoping to have around 12 different locations across Victoria, and then looking at going into New South Wales and Queensland. We'll have an online program, hoping I'm a country kid.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah,
to get out in the country.
It is. So to be able to have an online program that replicates the benefits of our in-person program through using online technologies is wonderful.
Yeah, of course. And accessibility. Yeah, it's such a good thing.
Huge consideration. So to try to have an online version of our program. And we have a teacher training program coming out, so teachers can actually run our programs in their schools. We train them up.
Yeah.
They can become certified.
Wow.
It's pretty rad.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So I guess we'll wrap it up now, but maybe just what's one more piece of advice that you'd give to the student entrepreneurs, people interested in running their own startups out there watching this episode of the Student Founder Podcast?
When I went to the Tram boot camp, I got to the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, is this for me? What am I doing? And then, but just giving it a go.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about a lot of our programs. At the like a lot of the entrepreneurial programs, but not just the University of Melbourne, other universities as well.
any business related accelerator programs.
Accelerate. If you have a boot camp,
yeah,
or they have a hackathon or something like that, just go.
Yeah.
Time commitments, maybe a weekend, maybe a Friday afternoon. Just go and just dip your toe in the water first, because it has been the most rewarding thing I've done at the University of Melbourne. I mean, I've had some pretty rewarding experiences here.
Absolutely.
But the people you meet, it's not just the fact you're building something, creating something that's going to change, hopefully change the world.
Yeah.
It may not. But the people you meet along the way and the skills you get won't just help you in the business or social enterprise world. It will help you in life.
Absolutely.
Right, whether in your academia, in your personal life, you'll meet friends, you'll network, you'll expand your horizons.
Absolutely.
And you got no idea where you're going to end up. Because I never thought I'd ever be on the 7:30 news. I thought, 7 o'clock news on the ABC.
Yeah.
That was beyond my wildest dreams. You know? So
which is fantastic, and it's congrats for you for getting this far, and I wish you all the best on the journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so thank you so much. That's been Dr. Matthew Harrison from Next Level Collaboration. We appreciate you coming on the show, and we hope that the student entrepreneurs out there watching and everybody else watching in the student community or entrepreneur founder community has learned a lot from this episode of the Student Founder Podcast. So thanks so much, Matt. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching this episode of the Student Founder Podcast. If you like this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all social media platforms. Links will be in the description. Again, this episode was brought to you by RofiLabs. a software development company that I and a group of friends out of the University of Melbourne have curated. We develop apps for startups. We help them get their MVPs launched in the most fast and fashionable way possible. If this is something you're interested in learning more about, feel free to visit our website at RofiLabs.com.au or reach out to me directly on LinkedIn at Oliver Kukanik. Until next time, we'll see you on the next episode of the Student Founder Podcast. Thank you so much, everyone.